Let me set the scene for you real quick, family, because what is happening between Papoose's and Remy Ma right now, in the middle of July 2026, is not a pool video. It is not a poolside pose. It is not a caption. What is happening right now is the slow-motion collapse of a brand identity that took almost 20 years to build, and Papoose's, real name Shamil Mackey, is not being cancelled by his enemies, is not being cancelled by Remy Ma, is not being cancelled by Claressa Shields. Papoose's is being cancelled by his own footage, in real time, on his own timeline, in front of an audience that finally has all the receipts they need to understand what the last 3 years have actually been about. And I need every one of you watching this video right now to lock in on something before we go one step further. Because everything you think you know about this situation has been framed around the wrong question the entire time. The right question is not who cheated on who. The right question is not who moved on first. The right question is why a man who filed for divorce in the state of New Jersey back in May of 2025 is still, in the middle of 2026, showing up in headlines like a man who is legally, financially, and reputationally tethered to a woman he claims he already walked away from. And when we get to the New Jersey filing breakdown later in this video, and I promise you we are getting there, we are walking through every single date, every single filing, every single unresolved thread. You're going to understand why every move Papoose's has made for the last 3 years was never actually about love, was never actually about Claressa Shields, was never actually about moving on. It was about something colder. It was about leverage. And Remy Ma, reminisce Mackey, has been 3 steps ahead of him the entire time, quietly, patiently, brilliantly, letting the man expose himself in ways her legal team would never have been able to manufacture on their own. Papoose's has been playing checkers on a chessboard Remy Ma set up in 2025, and the game just ended poolside in July, in front of the entire culture, on somebody else's phone. Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit like, and subscribe. Let's get into it. Now let me orient everybody on the full picture, because there are people watching this video right now who only caught the meme, only saw the pool clip flash across their For You page, only saw a headline pop up on Shade Room, and they do not have the full context of who these people are, what has already happened, and why this particular moment in July 2026 is the moment the entire situation finally breaks. Papoose's is a Brooklyn lyricist who spent the entire 2000s being called one of the most technically gifted rappers to never get his mainstream moment. Papoose's had bars. Papoose's had mixtapes. Papoose's had cosigns. What Papoose's did not have was a hit record, a platinum single, or a career that broke past the hardcore lyricist niche. And then Papoose's married Remy Ma, and everything about his public identity changed overnight. Remy Ma is one of the most decorated, most respected, most feared female MCs in the history of New York rap. Remy Ma came up under Big Pun. Remy Ma held her own on Terror Squad Records when Terror Squad was one of the most dominant crews in the industry. Remy Ma survived a federal prison sentence, came home in 2014, and immediately re-established herself in a genre that writes women off for less. Remy Ma went bar for bar with one of the biggest female rappers alive and walked out of that beef with her reputation intact and her respect elevated. Remy Ma is not a supporting character in anybody's story. Remy Ma is the lead. And when she married Papoose's, she gave that man the reality show, gave that man the mainstream visibility, gave that man access to rooms that his mixtapes alone were never going to book him into. Fast forward to May 22nd of 2025. Papoose's files for divorce in the state of New Jersey, drops a $325 filing fee, and then goes on Instagram with the receipts, accusing Remy Ma of cheating numerous times after her release from prison, saying he only delayed filing to protect the peace of their daughter. That is according to Complex. That is according to Power 1051. That is according to every credible outlet that covered it in May 2025. Then fast forward to April 2026. Remy Ma drops the W.Y.F.L freestyle on the radar, and the entire internet, including outlets like The Griot and Yahoo, immediately reads it as a direct shot at Papoose's and Claressa Shields. Then June, Papoose's and Claressa Shields walk the BET Awards red carpet together like a couple. Then July, the pool footage drops, the hubby caption resurfaces in the conversation, and the culture finally admits what Remy Ma has been telling us for over a year. That is the timeline. That is the runway. That is the pattern. And the stakes here are not just personal. They are cultural, they are financial, they are legal, and they are reputational. Papoose's is watching his brand implode in real time. The culture is being forced to admit that Remy Ma was auditing this man on wax before any of us were paying attention. There is a divorce proceeding sitting unresolved in a New Jersey filing system with alleged infidelity, alleged asset entanglement, and alleged public performance of partnership with a third party that is going to be legally combustible whenever this actually reaches a courtroom. And the question I want you to sit with as we go through this video is not is Papoose wrong? The question is, how did this man think this was going to end? Let me start with the surface evidence, because before we get into the industry level breakdown, before we get into the legal analysis, before we get into the deeper pattern of what is really happening here, we have to walk through what everybody has already seen with their own two eyes. And the first piece of surface evidence is the pool video itself. In the clip that has been circulating across every platform this week, Papoose is not sitting. Papoose is not standing. Papoose is stretched out poolside in a pose that anybody who has ever spent more than 4 hours on rap Twitter immediately recognized as a callback to a specific line Remy Ma dropped in her W.Y.F.L freestyle back in April. That pose is not accidental. That pose is not random. That pose is a receipt. And the fact that the footage got filmed from that specific angle, in that specific setup, and posted to a public feed, tells you everything you need to know about the level of internal awareness or complete lack of awareness that is going on in that camp right now. Because you cannot spend 6 months getting rapped about on a viral freestyle and then post yourself doing the exact thing the freestyle was about and expect the internet not to catch it. The internet catches everything. The internet especially catches everything when Remy Ma is the one who put the roadmap out there in the first place. The second piece of surface evidence is the caption energy. Because Claressa Shields, the two-time Olympic gold medalist, the world champion in multiple weight classes, has been calling Papoose her hubby on public feeds for months now. This is not new. This is a pattern. From the hubby caption that went viral last year, to the "You are the epitome of a man" post, to the joint birthday shout-out in March 2026 for Papoose'S 48th birthday and her 31st. This woman has been publicly performing marriage with Papoose, while Papoose was, up until May 2025, still legally married to Remy Ma. And while the divorce filed in May 2025 has been sitting in an unresolved state ever since. Calling somebody your hubby is not a joke. Calling somebody your hubby is not a slip of the tongue. Calling somebody your hubby on a public feed in front of millions of followers in the middle of an unresolved divorce proceeding is a claim. It is a flag planted in a piece of territory that, legally speaking, is not fully cleared yet. And Claressa Shields either knew exactly what she was doing when she started typing that word, or she is operating under a level of confidence that no boxing coach in the world can train into a person. The third piece of surface evidence is Remy Ma's own posture across this entire year. Because while Papoose has been running around from beach picnics on Valentine's Day, to joint birthday celebrations in March, to BET Awards red carpets in June, to poolside footage in July, Remy Ma has been doing what Remy Ma does. She has been performing. She has been recording. She has been showing up at events glowing, iced out hugging fans, radiating the exact kind of quiet dignity that makes an entire internet immediately choose sides. She dropped the W.Y.F.L freestyle in April on the biggest freestyle platform in the culture, and she did not have to name a single person for the entire genre to know exactly who she was talking about. That is what surface control looks like. That is what a veteran does. That is what happens when a woman with real range decides that the best response is a controlled release of information on her own schedule, on her own platforms, in her own voice. The fourth piece of surface evidence is the silence from Papoose's actual camp on the pool footage. Because Papoose, a man who has built an entire brand on being the last one to leave the microphone, a man who has freestyled through news cycles and rapped over headlines and turned every controversy into a bar, has said very little of substance about the July pool moment. Papoose defended himself back in May 2025 when the divorce filing dropped. Papoose sat down with Vlad TV and brought receipts against the cheating claims from Remy Ma's side. Papoose has denied cheating with Claressa Shields in on-camera interviews. But this pool footage, this specific July moment, has been met with a level of quiet from his camp that is loud in itself. Silence, family, in situations like this, is never neutral. Silence is a man knowing that there is no bar he can spit that fixes what the footage already showed. And the fact that his response to being clocked poolside was minimal response tells you everything you need to know about how bad the internal read on this situation actually is inside his own camp. And oh, do I have more for you? Because if you thought the surface stuff was damaging, if you thought the pool video was the ceiling of this situation, you are not ready for what the culture is quietly confirming behind the scenes. You are not ready for who has been weighing in without weighing in. You are not ready for the receipts that are stacking up in comment sections, in group chats, in podcast circuits, and in the reposts of Remy Ma's April freestyle that have been climbing again this week, as if the entire internet just simultaneously remembered she told us this was coming. The Papoose'S defenders in the comments are really not going to like this next part, but somebody has to say it out loud on camera. And today, on this channel, we are saying it. Stay with me, because we are about to shift from what the internet saw to what the culture is quietly confirming. And by the time we get to the New Jersey filing structure breakdown, you're going to understand that this situation is not just embarrassing. It is legally, financially, and reputationally combustible in ways Papoose himself may not even have processed yet. Let me talk about the cultural evidence, because this is where the story shifts from a viral moment into a full-blown cultural reckoning. The first piece of cultural evidence is the resurfacing of Remy Ma's W.Y.F.L bars. Back in April 2026, when Remy Ma dropped that freestyle on the radar, outlets like The Griot, Yahoo, and Hot New Hip Hop immediately picked up on the fact that she was rapping about someone being in competition with herself, a line the entire culture read as a direct shot at Claressa Shields. And the internet at the time had a split reaction. Some people cheered. Some people said Remy was being petty. Some people said she needed to move on. Some people said the divorce was already filed and she was just doing what a scorned ex-wife does. And now, in July 2026, that same culture is watching Papoose stretched out poolside in a pose that lines up with Remy Ma's lyrics, so precisely that even his own defenders have gone quiet. Remy Ma was not exaggerating. Remy Ma was auditing. Remy Ma was submitting evidence in advance on wax, in front of the entire industry, months before the receipts ever caught up to her. And every commentator, every podcast host, every casual fan who dismissed her in April owes her an apology in July. The second piece of cultural evidence is the way the commentary ecosystem has responded across the last week. Because the reaction has been shockingly unified. Normally, in situations like this, you get camps. You get Papoose fans defending him. You get Remy Ma fans attacking. You get neutral fans staying out of it. This time, the reaction has been overwhelmingly one-directional. Even accounts that were sympathetic to Papoose in May 2025, back when the initial cheating counter-allegations dropped, back when he sat with Vlad TV and brought receipts, have gone quiet or actively distanced themselves this week. That level of consensus across a fan base that was combative 14 months ago is not normal. It tells you the footage crossed a line that even his supporters cannot rationalize. And when your own people go silent, you are in a different kind of trouble than public backlash. You are in the kind of trouble that ends careers quietly, without a press release, without a farewell tour. You just look up one day and the room is empty. The third piece of cultural evidence is the way other women in hip-hop have been responding to Remy Ma's moment. Not with statements. Not with posts calling out Papoose by name. With likes. With shares. With subtle reposts of the W.Y.F.L freestyle. With Instagram stories celebrating Remy's recent looks, her recent freestyles, her recent public appearances. This is what solidarity looks like when it does not need to announce itself. This is what the sisterhood of hip-hop looks like when one of its most respected members is being publicly disrespected by the man she vouched for through prison, through re-entry, through reality television, through everything. And I want to acknowledge the counter-argument here because I know some of you are going to type it in the comments. You're going to say, hey, these are grown adults. Papoose already filed the divorce back in May 2025. This is legally over. Everybody should just move on. And I hear you. I understand that argument. But here is the counter-argument. And it is the one that ends the conversation. Filing for divorce is not the same as finalizing a divorce. A filing is the beginning of a proceeding, not the end of it. And in the state of New Jersey, an uncontested divorce can take months. A contested one with disputed assets, disputed infidelity claims, and disputed timelines can take years. So when people say the divorce is done, they are speaking casually. Legally, they are wrong. And that legal reality is exactly what makes the last 14 months of public performance so combustible. The fourth piece of cultural evidence, and this is the one I need you to really sit with, is what has been happening around Papoose's own credibility inside the culture. Because Papoose spent the summer of 2025, right after filing, doing damage control. He posted the divorce filing email. He appeared on Vlad TV. He posted screenshots. He brought receipts. He countered Remy Ma's cheating allegations with cheating allegations of his own. And in the short term, that damage control worked. Some of the culture gave him the benefit of the doubt. Some of the culture said, you know what, maybe he was a good husband. Maybe he did wait to file to protect his daughter. Maybe he did have real grievances. But then he did the one thing you cannot do when you are running a damage control campaign. He stopped being able to stop himself from performing the new relationship in public. Valentine's Day beach picnic. Joint birthday post in March. BET Awards red carpet in June. Pool footage in July. Every single one of those moments chipped away at the "I waited to file for the sake of my daughter" narrative from May 2025. Every single one of those moments made the culture look at his damage control and quietly ask a question. If this is really about your daughter's peace, why does every one of your public moments look like a man performing a brand new relationship instead of a man honoring a 15-year marriage on the way out the door with grace? That is the cultural verdict quietly rendered, delivered without a single official statement. Papoose's lost the court of public opinion in July 2026, not because of one video, but because the pattern finally became impossible to ignore. Now let me shift gears, because everything we have talked about up to this point has been about what happened on camera and what the culture is saying about it. But underneath the memes, underneath the freestyles, underneath the reposts and the reactions, there's a legal, financial, and structural reality that nobody is discussing with the seriousness it actually deserves. And this is where this channel goes further than most of the commentary you are going to find on this situation. Because the real story here is not about Papoose's being embarrassed poolside. The real story is about what happens when a legally separated, but not yet legally divorced man performs the role of a partner with someone else in public for over a year, while his actual divorce proceeding sits open in a New Jersey filing system. And there are 3 separate systemic layers to this that I need to walk you through, because each one carries its own set of consequences. And together they explain exactly why the July pool moment is so much more damaging than a viral clip should be. The first systemic layer is the legal one. Papoose filed for divorce in the state of New Jersey on May 22, 2025. That is a matter of public record. That is confirmed by Complex, by Power 1051, by every outlet that covered it. But filing is not finalizing. New Jersey is what is called an equitable distribution state, which means the courts do not split assets 50-50 automatically. The courts weigh a whole set of factors, including the length of the marriage, the earnings of each party, the contributions of each party to the household, and critically, any alleged marital misconduct that occurred during the marriage or during the separation. Papoose and Remy Ma got married back in the 2000s. That is a long marriage, a decade and a half plus. That is a marriage that produced joint assets, joint income streams, joint publishing considerations, joint reality show residuals, and joint brand infrastructure. Every single one of those has to be untangled. And every day that unresolved divorce sits open, every public appearance Papoose makes with Claressa Shields, every hubby caption, every beach picnic, every red carpet, every pool video, is potential evidence in that proceeding. A competent family law attorney, and Remy Ma has one, will archive every single one of those moments. Not to be dramatic, not to be petty, but because in an equitable distribution state, alleged marital misconduct can shift the weighting of asset division. That is how the system works. That is what the man has been walking into every single time he lets a camera come out at a resort. And Papoose either does not understand that, or does not care, or has calculated that whatever he is gaining from the public performance outweighs what he is losing in the legal proceeding. But every family law attorney I have ever read on cases like this will tell you that math almost never checks out. The second systemic layer is the financial one. And this is where the story really opens up, because when people talk about the Papoose and Remy Ma marriage, they usually talk about it in emotional terms. But a marriage of that length in the entertainment industry between 2 working artists is not just a relationship. It is a financial partnership. There are potentially joint properties. There are potentially joint business interests. There are royalty streams, publishing catalogs, likeness rights, brand deals, reality show residuals from their years on Love and Hip Hop, and every one of those has to be untangled in a divorce settlement. Which means every day this proceeding sits open, every day the paperwork does not finalize, is a day where the financial complexity of the eventual settlement gets more expensive, not less. And I have been saying this on this channel for a long time. When a divorce sits open for over a year after filing, 90% of the time it is because one side is running out the clock and the other side is letting them. Because time is on the side of whoever has less to lose. Remy Ma has less to lose from delay than Papoose does. Remy Ma is not chasing. Remy Ma is not begging. Remy Ma is glowing at events while dropping the strongest freestyles she has released in years. Remy Ma has all the time in the world. Papoose is the one whose brand degrades with every additional day this drags on. Papoose is the one whose calls slow down. Papoose is the one whose bookings quietly disappear. Time is not neutral in a case like this. Time is a weapon, and Remy Ma has been holding it patiently. The third systemic layer is the reputational one, and this is the one that is going to sink his career in slow motion. Because in the hip-hop industry, there is a very specific kind of currency that Papoose has always traded on. The loyal husband, the family man, the guy who stood by his wife through her incarceration, through her legal battles, through her re-entry, through every public storm. That was his brand. That was the identity that gave him crossover appeal beyond his mixtape lyricism. That was what booked him on morning shows, on reality television, on podcast circuits, where his rap catalog alone would not have gotten him a chair. And now, in a 14-month arc from May 2025 to July 2026, that entire brand identity has been vaporized. The Valentine's Day beach picnic did damage. The March joint birthday post did damage. The BET Awards appearance in June did damage. The pool footage in July may have been the kill shot. There's no going back from what the culture has seen this year. There's no press release that undoes it. There's no Vlad TV sit-down that reframes it. Papoose spent almost 20 years building the reputation of the loyal one, and he demolished it in 14 months of public performance with a woman who was calling him her hubby before the ink on the divorce filing was dry. The industry, the actual industry, the bookers, the showrunners, the podcast producers, the label executives, they are watching this. They are recalculating. They are quietly deciding whether the Papoose brand is still safe to associate with. And that recalculation happens without any announcement. It just happens. And one day the man is going to look up and notice that the calls have stopped coming. And he is not going to be able to point to the exact moment it changed. But we can point to it. We can point to a whole calendar of moments. And the pool video is the most recent one. And here is where these three systemic layers come together into one devastating truth. The legal, financial, and reputational consequences of the last 14 months of Papoose's decisions are not going to hit him separately. They are going to hit him all at once. And when they hit, this man is not going to have the infrastructure to absorb the impact. Because the infrastructure that would have absorbed it, the marriage, the partnership, the co-signed brand identity, the sisterhood of hip-hop cover that Remy Ma provided him for over a decade, is the exact infrastructure he chose to walk out of on his own terms, on his own timeline, in his own way. That is not a strategy. That is not a plan. That is a man who was never really thinking 3 moves ahead and is about to discover that the game he thought he was winning has been running on somebody else's board the whole time. Now let me deliver what I think is the most important truth of this entire video. And I need you to be locked in for this, because everything we have discussed up to this point has been building toward this specific reveal. The truth is this. Papoose did not lose Remy Ma because he found Claressa Shields. Papoose lost Remy Ma years before the divorce filing was ever drafted. And everything since then has been performance. Everything since May 2025 has been public relations. Everything since Valentine's Day 2026 has been damage control disguised as romance. The pool video is not the crime. The pool video is the confession. Because a man who is actually finished with a marriage would have filed cleanly, closed the chapter cleanly, and moved on with the kind of quiet discipline that gives you plausible dignity on the way out. A man who is actually finished would not need to spend the 14 months after his filing performing the new relationship in front of every camera he could find. A man who is actually finished would not need to make his ex-wife the co-star of his new relationship's rollout. And here is the allegation that the culture has been dancing around, but nobody has said cleanly on camera. Papoose has allegedly, reportedly, based on the public pattern of his behavior, been leveraging the drawn-out nature of this proceeding, the ambiguity of the public narrative, and the visibility of the new relationship in ways that shape both public sympathy and eventual settlement dynamics. That is what the pattern suggests. That is what the timing suggests. That is what the silence from his own camp suggests every time a new piece of footage drops. And Remy Ma, brilliantly, patiently, has been letting that strategy play out. Because she knew that eventually he would do something visible enough, obvious enough, on camera enough, to collapse the entire performance in front of the audience it was designed to influence. And that is exactly what happened this month. Papoose collapsed his own strategy poolside. Papoose handed Remy Ma's legal team the exact piece of evidence they have probably been archiving for. Papoose did not just embarrass himself. Papoose materially damaged the narrative he has been trying to control since May of last year. That is the actual story. That is what the pool video represents. It is not a moment of freedom for Papoose's. It is the moment his own hands made the case Remy Ma's legal team was going to make anyway, and made it worse than they could have made it themselves. Remy Ma did not have to lift a finger. She just had to wait. And she waited with more grace, more patience, and more strategic discipline than anybody in this culture recognized until right now. That is the truth bomb. Papoose's has been playing checkers on a chessboard Remy Ma set up before the filing was even drafted, and the game just ended in July, in front of everybody, on somebody else's phone. And this brings us to Remy Ma, and I want to close this section by giving Remy Ma her flowers the way this culture has repeatedly failed to give them to her. Remy Ma is one of the greatest to ever hold a microphone in the state of New York, period. Remy Ma survived a federal prison sentence and came home in 2014 to reestablish herself in an industry that writes women off for far less. Remy Ma raised children through incarceration, through re-entry, through reality television, through her husband's public embarrassments. Remy Ma stood by Papoose's during the prison years. Remy Ma stood by Papoose's during the industry lean years. Remy Ma stood by Papoose's during the reality show chaos on Love and Hip Hop. Remy Ma gave that man a public marriage, a public family, a public brand, a public identity, and a career trajectory he never would have had on his own. And Papoose's repaid her by filing on May 22, 2025 with a public receipts campaign, by turning up with Claressa Shields on Valentine's Day 2026, by walking a BET Awards red carpet with a new relationship in June, and by ending up in the pool footage that has driven this entire July conversation. And Remy Ma's response to all of that has been to keep working, to keep glowing, to keep showing up, to let the W.Y.F.L freestyle land in April and do the receipts work on her behalf, to let the universe deliver the confirmation on its own schedule. This is Remy Ma's Renaissance Beyoncé era, not the lemonade era, not the pain era, the era where she stopped explaining, stopped defending, and started winning quietly, deliberately, patiently, one appearance at a time, one freestyle at a time, one iced out event at a time. And the universe is delivering. Every day Papoose's spends running public damage control is a day Remy Ma spends compounding. Every video Claressa Shields posts is a video Remy Ma's team archives. Every moment Papoose's thinks he is escaping is a moment he is actually sinking deeper into a proceeding he cannot fully control. One person built a career on freestyles and mixtapes and married up in the 2000s. The other survived federal prison, rebuilt her name from scratch, and outlasted every scandal that touched her. That is the difference between Papoose's and Remy Ma. That has always been the difference. And now, finally, the culture is seeing it clearly, in the middle of July 2026, with the receipts stacked exactly where Remy Ma always said they would be. But make no mistake, this story is not over. This is only the start, because there are at least 2 developments coming that I need every single one of you to be watching for. The first is the next update out of the New Jersey proceeding. That paperwork does not stay quiet forever. Sooner or later, filings become public. Sooner or later, dates and dollar amounts and settlement structures make their way into reporting. And when that update hits, when the specific terms of the eventual settlement become public record, the July pool footage is going to look like a warm-up act compared to what shows up in the coverage. The second development to watch for is Remy Ma's next verse. Because Remy Ma is a rapper. Remy Ma is a lyricist. Remy Ma is a woman who put Papoose'S business on wax in April with W.Y.F.L and got vindicated by his own public behavior in July. Do you really think she does not have another one loaded? Do you really think she is not sitting on another verse right now, waiting for the exact right moment to drop it, timing it to whatever the next public misstep is? I have a feeling, and this is speculation, but it is informed speculation. I have a feeling Remy Ma has at least one more track in the chamber. And when it lands, it is going to detonate this entire situation all over again. So if you want to be around when that verse drops, if you want to be in the room when the next filing update breaks, if you want to be first with the analysis when the culture pivots again, you already know what to do. Hit subscribe. Turn on the notifications. Because when the next chapter breaks, this channel is going to have the breakdown ready. And on the next one, family, we're getting into something that I do not think anybody is ready for, because there is a name that keeps coming up in the background of the Papoose's situation, a name that ties directly to a much bigger conversation happening in New York hip-hop right now. And when I tell you who it is, and what the connection actually reveals about the last 5 years of this culture, you are going to understand why the pool video was never really the main story. It was the door. And on the next video, we are walking through it. Stay glowing. Stay winning. Stay honest with your paperwork. I will talk to y'all real soon.